Working out what the week would be like was a challenge. I'm emailed 13 documents, an agenda and instructions on how to use the IEC's meeting registrations portal. I have a slight feeling of information overload, but still don't really know what to expect. One of the documents contained a briefing for a role play. Impressive advances in artificial intelligence mean robots may become capable of replacing human beings in every task imaginable. What are the ethical implications of such a development? How do we prepare for such a future? Wow, so I head off to the Sunday evening get-together feeling a little bit nervous.
You are listening to The Standard Show, the podcast that brings you the stories behind the standards, with Matthew Childs and Cindy Paragill.
Hello, this is Matthew Childs and welcome to The Standard Show, the podcast that brings you the stories behind the standards. Now, every year, BSI and its partners offer young engineers an incredible all-expenses-paid opportunity to take part in the prestigious IEC Young Professionals Programme. This programme brings together the next generation of expert engineers, technicians and managers from right around the world. Participants gain a unique platform to influence the future of international standardization and conformity assessment in the fast-evolving field of electrotechnology. The International Electrotechnical Commission, or IEC, is the world's leading organisation for the preparation and publication of international standards for electrical, electronic and related technologies. The IEC Young Professionals Programme is integrated into the annual IEC General Meeting, a week-long event where global stakeholders tackle critical challenges and set the strategic direction for the IEC. Now, the voice you heard at the top of the episode was that of design engineer Tom Ruddell, speaking about his experience of representing BSI and the UK on the IEC Young Professionals Programme in 2024, which took place in Edinburgh. So this episode of The Standard Show is Tom's kind of audio diary. Not a day-by-day account as such. Instead, it's an adaptation of a blog Tom wrote immediately after taking part in the Young Professionals Programme, recounting his thoughts and experiences about his week at the IEC General Meeting as it happened, about the people he meets and the things he does. And make sure you stick around to the end of the episode to hear me chat with Tom about what happened next and his continuing involvement in standards.
This is Cindy Paragill here with a reminder that you can rate, review and subscribe to The Standard Show wherever you get your podcasts. And you can get in touch and find and follow us on social media too. All the details are in the show notes.
My week at the International Electrotechnical Commission General Meeting. I recently attended the annual International Electrotechnical Commission General Meeting as a young professional. After a packed week of networking, workshops and talks, I came away with a really hard to get insight into how the IEC works, how to get involved, and also what a career in international standards is really like. I also now know about 5 million new acronyms. Most technical people use standards regularly, but few know how they're made. I used to regard standards as authoritative documents which just exist, like a sort of ancient manuscript penned by an anonymous author. I realised though that I knew precious little about how international standards are actually developed and managed by real people. All that was about to change though. I'm Tom Ruddell, I'm 28 and I'm a design engineer dedicated to environmental challenges, and I live in Glasgow, Scotland, in the UK. I was really proud and excited to be selected for this professional development opportunity, so I packed my bags and headed off on the relatively short journey from Glasgow to Edinburgh, though not entirely sure what awaited me there. Excitement and nervousness. Working out what the week would be like was a challenge. I'm emailed 13 documents, an agenda and instructions on how to use the IEC's meeting registrations portal, a function-first website of pleasantly nostalgic design. I have a slight feeling of information overload, but still don't really know what to expect. One of the documents contained a briefing for a role play. impressive advances in artificial intelligence mean robots may become capable of replacing human beings in every task imaginable. What are the ethical implications of such a development? How do we prepare for such a future? Wow, so I head off to the Sunday evening get-together feeling a little bit nervous. I check in at my hotel and meet up with the other UK Young Professionals. That's YPs in IEC parlance, by the way. Both are also design engineers, and we get on instantly, finding that we've got a lot in common. So I relax a bit, knowing that at least I won't be alone all week. The week's events are strictly scheduled on our agenda and held mostly at a large hotel in a main plenary room and several smaller meeting rooms. Our first session opens with a speech by the President of the IEC, Joe Copps, who sets the tone with a passionate introduction to the IEC and its work. There is some poignant history here for the IEC General Meeting taking place in Scotland, as the IEC's first president was Lord Kelvin, elected in 1906, who gives his name to the SI unit of temperature, in turn derived from the River Kelvin, which flows through Glasgow. It was in Glasgow that he served as Professor of Natural Philosophy for 53 years. Joe ends the address with, "Let us work together to create a world that is not only technologically advanced, but inclusive, sustainable, and resilient." It's no small mission, and he says it with complete conviction. I'm totally on board. So, with those rousing words in mind, it's time to break the ice. I'm given a name and I set off to find them. Networking is not normally my idea of fun, but there's no awkwardness as everyone dives in and I quickly fall into a pattern of, "Nice to meet you. What's your job? Where do you live?" In a very short space of time, I speak to people from New Zealand, South Korea, Singapore, Turkey, China, and Sweden. What an amazing start. A crash course. The YPs meet in the plenary room. There's a range of experience in the room. Standards users, standards makers, and conformity assessors, and all are really keen to learn. Over the course of the day, we hear from previous YPs and standards leaders about how the IEC operates and how we can get involved. From the talks, I learned that the international standards ecosystem follows carefully defined rules and processes. The IEC sits at the international level for electrotechnical systems, alongside ISO and ITU, with Senelec sitting below IEC at the European level. A further step again, and there are the national standards bodies like BSI in the UK, DKE in Germany, and so on. So, say we want a new standard. First, a need for the standard must be established in order to gain enough buy-in. If this is done, the work is then assigned to the relevant technical committee, TC, and there's over 100 of these. Each country nominates to act as either participant or observer, with participants nominating experts who will draft the standard. The standard is then released to each country or national committee to be distributed to domestic stakeholders for consideration. When reviewing the draft, each national committee gathers the views of their domestic stakeholders to ensure the finished standard is fit for purpose around the world. This culminates in voting, with strict quotas for final approval. It's a truly collaborative process. Lessons in diplomacy. Consensus need not imply unanimity. It turns out that working as a delegate for your national committee is less about being a technical expert, much more about collaboration and dispute resolution. We hear from Walter Zoller, previously a YP and now the Secretary for the Smart Manufacturing Committee. He tells us that not only will your international counterparts have different stakeholders and requirements, but you must also collaborate through a language barrier. All IEC meetings are conducted in English, by the way. You've got time difference and cultural factors to consider too. Walter emphasises the importance of bearing all this in mind in order to facilitate collaboration. This is especially important when there are stiff differences in opinion. The objective of all this negotiation is to gain consensus. That's obviously got an IEC definition. A general agreement characterised by the absence of sustained opposition to substantial issues by any important part of the concerned interests, and by a process that involves seeking to take into account the views of all parties concerned and to reconcile any conflicting arguments. So, after attempting to resolve disagreements, and provided that no party is providing sustained opposition, then there's consensus. Annette Fredrickson, another YP alumnus and today a member on the steering committee of DKE, points out that achieving consensus late at night after exhausting your committee into submission is not a valid strategy. If this sounds like international diplomacy, that's because, well, it is. We learn that standards and legislation have got a close relationship, one which varies from region to region. It's important that governments utilise the value in standards, but standards themselves have no legal power and are also not a substitute for legal enforcement. The agenda then takes me to a meeting of the Standardization Management Board, the SMB, which perfectly embodies my imagined international organisation meeting. It's held in an exhibition hall and live streamed from several camera angles, with delegates sitting around tables arranged in a huge square, each with a microphone, water and laptop. The SMB's objective is to monitor hot topics. That's green hot, by the way, not red hot, as the chairman quips, and I quickly decide he's very cool. The SMB have prepared presentations on this year's hot topics. Those are 24/7 carbon-free, zero carbon building, and electric aircraft. Each theme involves any number of technological developments, and each requires the guiding support of standards. After the presentations, they take questions from the YPs. With my heart pounding, I introduce myself and ask whether consideration has been given to the role that circular economy plays within zero carbon buildings. The answer is yes, and that TC 111, which leads work on circular economy, will play a role in that regard. And with that, I'm involved.
Standards affect all of us every day, wherever we go, whatever we do. By defining good practice, they help people and organizations to do things better. Each year, standards bodies publish thousands of standards, and we are looking for more people like you to join our community of standards makers. We welcome applicants from all fields, backgrounds, and career stages. Our goal is a simple one: to have a balance of views around the table. By becoming a standards maker, you could help to improve the way things are made and done, like creating healthier and more inclusive workplaces, developing higher quality healthcare systems, making advances in AI governance, or accelerating climate action, and many, many others. So, if you want to make a difference and shape the world through standards, start your standards making journey now. Details of how to do so are in the show notes.
Experts in the room. So, I'm now thinking, how do the experts write the clauses and provisions in the standards that exert so much influence? Because my employer Synaptic develops passive electricity grid sensors, I register to observe a meeting for TC57, who overlooks power systems management and associated information exchange. TC57 oversee a standard IEC 61850, which defines the communication protocol my company uses that ensures our products can speak to other substation equipment. I find the TC57 experts to be just that, expert. Working in industry or academia, each expert knows their domain fully, and so by working together they can establish standards which are relevant, accurate, and impactful. Later in the week, I meet the chair of TC 114 on marine energy, Jonathan Colby. In a small group, he tells us about his career and standards journey, the importance of reflection, ambition, and mentorship. His dedication and enthusiasm are obvious, and he takes his role extremely seriously. He carefully prepares for meetings and maintains close contact with his delegates. I see a more relaxed side to the IEC delegates and experts when the general meeting's more than 1,200 attendees gather at the end of the first day in a massive but artistically lit exhibition hall. well dressed and catching up with colleagues old and new. I think for a while about the sheer amount of expertise in that room. There's a special sort of energy and excitement, confident and purposeful. Following the experts' example, us YPs have a chance to role play as experts and stakeholders in a standards making game, creating a made up standard from various individual perspectives and countries. Now, this was serious work, but at the same time, if you've never heard a sincere debate over flying apparatus for electronic baby robots, or for that matter, what exactly a baby is, then well, I've one up on you. Time for change. I've alluded to the IEC's current digital tools, but the world's electrotechnical organisation is pushing hard on modernising. Word documents with literally thousands of comments organised into an 8-column table? Spending hours searching for relevant standards and clauses? Not for long. I'm given a temporary login details to preview and even influence 2 of the digital tools being introduced by the IEC, the Online Standards Development Portal, OSD, and the IEC Smart White Label app. OSD is a document collaboration tool specifically designed for the IEC's workflow. It's intuitive to use, well laid out, and robust. Having done my standards work in increasingly horrifying Word documents, it's bad when there's more markup than text itself. And while I'm trying it out, I think to myself, wow, I could really see myself using this. Smart standards are something else entirely. Our workshop facilitator is bubbling with excitement. In the future, he tells us, technology will access standards directly, and we will move beyond the limitations of PDF documents. AI will provide us the standards, clauses, and requirements applicable to our needs instantly, necessitating a totally new business model. And it gets better. My group is asked to develop a presentation that will pitch our ideas for this transformation. Making our contribution. Over the week, between our other meetings and activities, I meet up with my group to work on our presentation. We start slowly while we're still getting to know each other, and after a while, I decide to try and facilitate. We rearrange the seating, set up a screen, nominate a note taker, and start selecting concepts methodically. Now we're making progress, but time is tight. By the end of our last session, everyone stays behind to wrap up and go over the slides. A break in the agenda comes in the form of a visit to the National Robotarium, a brand new institute already packed full of startups. The institute has robotics experiments everywhere, ranging from human interaction, industrial applications and healthcare. An undeniable wow moment was interacting with Amica, which uses a ChatGPT AI model combined with facial gestures to communicate naturally with the people in the room, even speaking Chinese when prompted. The takeaway is clear to me. Robotics and AI are fast moving into the everyday, and we need robust and international standards to guide their design and use. Will some of the YPs here today go on to contribute towards those societal objectives? Maybe so. With the presentations mostly complete and friendships starting to form, Thursday night is a real party. There's a live band, and after food and wine, things get into full swing with dancing, singing, and good times all around. When the venue closes, we go from bar to bar, trading stories about work and life across our different countries. I was conscious that cultural differences came into play here, but everyone makes a genuine effort to be inclusive and bridge language and cultural barriers. It's early in the morning when I go back to my hotel room, my mind buzzing from conversation, and a few drinks. An unforgettable experience. With Friday morning comes the IEC General Assembly itself, where the IEC makes decisions, conducts elections, and turns the page on the departed year into the next. It also provides an opportunity for our presentation to be delivered to a massive and receptive audience. No pressure then. On the day, Maria delivers our presentation, and while I know she was nervous, it doesn't show on stage. She speaks clearly, confidently, and succinctly, really doing our work proud. What a great result and a perfect way to end the week. For me, this was the end of my stay in Edinburgh, as I had other travel plans, but it was not the end of the experience. I keep up to date with a steady stream of messages into the by now highly active WhatsApp group chat, including the election of the 3 YP leaders, representing Asia and the Middle East, Africa and Europe, and America and Oceania. So, congratulations to Majid, Fatoumata, and Louise. Now that I've had time to reflect and catch up on sleep, how will I remember the IEC General Meeting? Well, once I got over my initial nerves, I had a truly amazing time meeting people from across the world, each with unique and fascinating experiences, and, I hope, some of those will go on to become lifelong friends and colleagues. I do believe that international standards have a vital role to play as we transition to a sustainable society. They provide a common language and opportunity for collaboration. They can only help to reduce division and rebuild trust. It has certainly been an unforgettable experience, one that has opened my mind to international standards and the inspiring individuals who contribute to them. But more than that, I now feel a connection to that community, one which is international in makeup and strives for the precious qualities of collaboration, openness, and improvement. I don't know exactly where this will lead, but I have some good ideas and a whole lot of new connections.
So, Tom, you were recounting, those events as you felt and experienced them at the time. Reflecting now, we're a few months on from that week on the programme. You're sitting here today. What jumps out at you now about that experience?
Yeah, well, it was just such an amazing experience, and that happened to me. So, yeah, while it sounds so outside the ordinary, I really felt like I was given an experience to thrive and also learn in such a motivating event, and being alongside inspiring people.
So, Tom, I wonder, is there one particular experience that you look back on most fondly?
I think for me, that first night really encapsulates it, because I was so nervous, so out of my comfort zone, and actually meeting people from around the world, being thrown into that environment and realizing, hey, I've got so much in common with these people, and this is so exciting. It really showed me what's possible.
Now, Tom, your standard that you talked about has been published. It was an idea that you drove. How does that make you feel?
Yeah, well, it's a fantastic feeling. So obviously I'm really proud of my personal contribution to that work, and excited to see where it goes in the industry and the impact that it has. But as well as that, just really proud of what the committee's achieved.
Now, you started your role at Synaptech around the same time as you taking part in the IEC Young Professionals Programme. Has being on the programme and being a standards maker helped you with your job?
Yes, well, since then I've just really got stuck into my role at Synaptech, and I've been having a great time learning about the technology and obviously taking a keen interest in the way that we use standards, and seeing what my contribution to that can be.
So what's next for you in standards?
Well, I'm obviously keeping up to date with European developments in the BS 887 series. So in particular, if there's any opportunity to look at moving the Luminaire's remanufacturing standard to a European level, we're also taking on board feedback from the community and industry when it's in use. I'll be really excited to work on that.
And Tom, given that you are now a standards maker and you've been involved in this international programme, what advice would you have to anyone else considering getting involved in standards, and particularly getting involved in the IEC Young Professionals Programme?
Well, I think the first kind of mindset shift to get is that, really seeing standards as a tool and as living, breathing documents, which you personally can really contribute to. So I would say everyone I've met in the standards world has been so excited to support my journey, and that my advice to other young professionals would be, it's great if you've got a plan, if you know where you want to get to, but if not, just get involved and see where it leads, and it will definitely be a great experience.
Now, if you want to learn more about the IEC Young Professionals Programme and about other ways to get involved in standards, then check out the links in the show notes. And a reminder that the show notes are also where you can find details of our socials and all the other ways to get in touch with us here on The Standard Show.
You have been listening to an episode of The Standard Show, the podcast that brings you the stories behind the standards, with Matthew Childs and Cindy Parakill.
You just heard a stripped media production.